Thanks for tuning in to Women Who Open Doors, a podcast dedicated to lifting the voices of incredible women in our communities who not only excel in their careers, but inspire us through their actions for others. Hi, I'm Julie Collins, owner and coach of Not Magic, and it's my honor to help share the stories of these remarkable women. So without further ado, welcome to Women Who Open Doors. Welcome to Women Who Open Doors. I'm super excited today because we have a really exciting podcast ahead of us. We have two ladies joining us that are friends of mine and friends of our team here at Not Magic, and we're so excited to talk to them. So we have the ladies from CityTins with us today, Tara and Kristen, and I'll do a little bio for you first. But again, we're just super excited to have them. So thanks, ladies, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Let me tell you a little bit about them. So when Tara Laatsch and Christin Cilento met on the playground at their daughter's elementary school, they had no idea that the casual meeting would lead to founding a company together. Tara was gearing up for a full-time return to corporate life, while Kristen had her own company providing marketing services and brand strategy to Fortune 500 companies and nonprofits. Now in its 13th year, their brainchild, CityTins, which I know they have one, and I want to show you ours too, has proven itself a cult foodie favorite. And the Business Insider named CityTins one of the coolest new businesses in 2015, and they have grown their Milwaukee business into 9 different markets throughout Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, and beyond. So just super excited to have them. So welcome, Tara.
Julie. That sounded great.
It sounded like you like those people, don't you? That'd be cool to listen to. I told you guys it would be super fun. All right. So I showed a little bit of the can here, the tin. But Tara, why don't you first explain to our listeners a little bit about what CityTins are and what it can do for our listeners?
Sure. I'd be happy to. So inside every one of these little 4-inch round tins are 20 plus coasters. Each coaster is good for $10 off your tab at the restaurant featured on the coaster. So you simply go to the restaurant that you're looking at that's on the coaster, and you provide this to your server at the end of your meal, and they'll take $10 off your tab as long as you spent $25 or more. It's a $200 value inside the entire City Tin. All of the restaurants that are featured in the tin are locally owned and operated. So this is really about supporting local restaurants, supporting the dining scene in your community. The other thing that is in every City Tin is a little, what we call the dinner spinner. So the names of all the restaurants that are in each tin are included on the dinner spinner that's in the tin, and you give it a little spin and it'll help you decide on where to go to dinner that night.
Dare I say it? That every spin's a winner with the dinner spinner?
Right. So
I like that little tagline, Miss Marketing Brainchild over there.
So it's a really easy thing to use. Great gift opportunity for folks, new residents in town, hostess gift, date night gift, things like that. But it's just a way to explore. It's like a pre-curated list of places that you want to go check out in your market, your area.
The other thing I kind of love about it, as far as a gift item, is that if I have a couple of these in my closet or basement, as it were, you can just go grab it. It applies to everybody, the hardest to shop for, in-laws, whomever, and it works. But, I'm sure something that we'll get into later is all the other components how this tin functions, namely as a fundraiser and the things we've done in the community. And that's, I think, the biggest draw for what we do and why we do it.
Yeah. Well, why don't we go there, ladies, right now? Because I do think that, that's also why we wanted to chat with you, because not just you're fun on a podcast, but you're doing this for a bigger purpose, kind of a why for the community, especially after everything we've gone through in the pandemic for restaurants. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about that, about your why and how you're helping the community?
So initially, when we started in 2009 and we're kind of forging this relationship and deciding what we wanted to do, and how we would execute that, it kind of came from the idea of we wanted to create a fundraiser for the kids' school, but something that was interesting, that we wanted, that we would buy, that we liked, that we'd enjoy. And so we did execute this. And when it happened and it was brought to public mainstream, not just at our kids' school, it went bananas. And we realized something that, yeah, you know what, we can raise a lot of funds for schools, nonprofits. And that was really kind of the third arm of this, having it function as a fundraiser and to do good in the community. So there's so many components that someone who buys this might not see, which is what's interesting, and having the opportunity to talk here about those kind of things that really do make a difference in the community. One of which is, okay, we both were familiar with the corporate world, and then transitioning and saying, you know what, we want to support locally owned and operated venues, locally owned and operated restaurants specifically, but also the locally owned and operated businesses and boutiques that sell the tins. And that live local movement was not as pronounced as it is today. And so it was our job from the ground up to help cultivate and educate on that message, on the messaging that, you know what, you want to seek out the cool local places to support them. Otherwise, they won't exist anymore. And it was at the height of that recession at that time in 2009. And I think a lot of the restaurants and small businesses were really wanting to get that message out and didn't necessarily know how. So we would partner with places like Local First Milwaukee or Madison Originals at the time, and they were already spreading that message, and we supported that. So there is that component, which is great, and the fundraising, which is great. And then the third component, which was neat of giving back to the community, is we chose to work with to assemble our tins after doing it in our basements and, and going through entrepreneurial.
And having friends at our dining room tables, putting pictures in tins, putting stickers on the
assembly processes, right? Yeah.
We were hooked up with Goodwill Industries at their light assembly portion of that, and eventually moved on to who we currently work with, which is Beyond Vision, and they are legally blind people. It's a for-profit, but always the initiative of helping. And how many people can we help with this one product, and how much impact can we make in every aspect of our business to give back?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think it's just such an impactful thing. And even, even the design of it creates this, I know you have your little tagline about the spinner, but I always think of you guys as kind of a connector in the community as well. And we can go a little marketing-ish here, but like you are connecting people to different places too. Not just people that assemble, but to different places maybe they would have never experienced before, because I know about you guys, but I kind of get in the rut of like, okay, I'm going to always go to the same places. I don't get out of the bubble of Cedarburg as much as I probably should, right? So I really view you guys too as this connector of, not just the people that assemble it for you, which is super cool, and what you're doing in the community, but even the community of getting out and connecting us to places that we hadn't experienced before.
And Tara can speak to that because she was kind of the go-to for all her friends. Tell us someplace new. What can we do? And it really is about trying something new. And that's kind of the point for the restaurants is, okay, we're going to get someone from the North Shore coming to the city and vice versa. And we're going to just keep traffic moving so that all of Milwaukee and the Metro Milwaukee area are impacted economically by and not just staying in your comfort zone. But you want to talk about how we even came upon restaurants. Like Tara's the reason why we focus on restaurants specifically and not just small business in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we hear it all the time from people at events or just people we run into that they found their new favorite restaurant by using CityTins. We've also, we've dabbled in doing sort of a staycation where we have had retailers in these tins, where it's retailers or spas or bars, restaurants, all a whole different smattering of businesses in one tin. But what people really love is going out and trying new restaurants, new dining experiences. We really did a new tin this year called the Diversitin, which we could probably talk about this for an entire podcast. But our Diversitin was new this year. We worked with Emerald Mills, who is the owner of Diverse Dining. And she helped us to curate a list in this tin that are all focused on ethnically diverse people and food. So that was a great way to sort of introduce a lot of new restaurants that people were not familiar with in parts of town that they had not been to before. And it was met with a lot of support and success. So that was great to be part of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, shout out to Emerald, because she's also been on our podcast as well. So just some really great women. And I love the collaboration between it all. I want you guys to back up a little bit. So I'm kind of curious, back to the days of when this first all started, as to you both were in, corporate type jobs, right? So talk to us, each of you, a little bit about what happened to you where you're like, I just can't go back. I have to do something like this. What was it for each of you that was like the turning point or that defining moment?
That's kind of fun because Tara and I we were in vastly different places in our life because she was ready to go back.
Mm-hmm. So my career started out of college working for a HR consulting company, HR outsourcing, benefits and like pensions, 401ks, things like that. Moved to Milwaukee in 2000 and then was ended up with Arthur Andersen, then moved to Deloitte & Touche and left when my daughter was born. And then I had another child and I was about ready to go back. And I just was like, we were doing international like expat consulting, really interesting things, helping people out in an international business environment. And I just thought, I just don't know that I can go back to the office. But my husband was like, okay, our youngest is ready to go back to kindergarten. It's time for you to go back to work, right? And I was like, I just can't see myself doing all of that. So in talking with Kristen, I was really weighing my options, and this was such an organic development. I knew that she was working with large companies doing marketing pieces, and I knew that she did graphic design, and I asked her to help out on a school carnival by making some posters. And
how did they turn out, by the way?
The poster was brilliant, and I wish I still had it. I wonder if we do somewhere, but
you probably do.
Designed this amazing poster, and I came back to her with all sorts of red edits all over it.
Oh my God!
I came back and she was like, "I don't think that."
What? And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, does she know I get paid $100 an hour to do this, or whatever it was at the time? Right. And I'm hiding my kids' names and her kids' names inside this thing, like it was fun for everybody. And I started looking at why there were red marks on the cotton part of what we were trying to present. And I stopped dead in my tracks after I looked at it. First, I was offended, and then I
worked through those issues.
I really, really honestly looked at what she was saying. It was so, I can't tell, it does not do her justice to say she's a good editor. No, there are reasons behind every single thing that she does. And everything is very deliberate, and it is well thought out every time. And to the point where it will become, I don't know how you'd say, she's right all the time, and you just have to kind of defer to the point. I've given up. I just about stand down and I just do it now. I just execute, because ultimately we can spin it around in several different ways, but she's almost always right. And it's a horrible thing to have to own.
It's a good marriage you have going on, a good marriage.
Yes. And so, and that's really what kind of piqued my interest. And after that, and after I submitted the corrections she wanted, we revised it, we fine-tuned these pieces, all this collateral material for this big event, big on an elementary school level. Okay. Then I went up to her on the playground, and this is really where the story origin, where it is. I said, let's do something. We need to be in business together. And she's like, what?
Entrepreneurism is nothing that I ever aspired to or even considered. I didn't have any ideas of what I was going to do. I really thought my road back to employment was back through corporate.
Yeah. And at that time too, I think being, having children as a mother, and I'm a mother as well, and being out of the workplace, there's some trepidation there, and there's some reticence of what am I worth? What can I really do?
And we're in a different world right now. 13 years later, working from home is very common, obviously coming through COVID. Back then it was a little kind of new to the scene and not as readily available.
And it was, and again, like Tara's saying, when we started talking about this and saying maybe this is viable and we want to do this, our skill sets were so polarized, which
Yeah.
is what attracted me. I knew she had all the skill sets I don't possess. And
same.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so we knew that this would work. And I had come from, as you mentioned, providing marketing services and to any myriad of companies. So I could be in my wheelhouse, which was writing copy and writing books, ghostwriting and writing speeches and marketing proposals. But then I ventured off into design and taught myself, and photography, which was in the family. That was our family business, was photography. And all of a sudden, I then have to do accounting and I half the times I didn't charge people because I'm just like, oh, that's such a pain, and it just was
Yeah.
not a smart way to run a business. And I did it and it worked. But when I met Tara, it was like, this was my perfect complement. She was the answer to everything. She can keep me on a short leash. She will tell me exactly what, and we'll make money doing it. And that's what happened.
Well, and I think you guys, especially you, Kristen, just because you had some vision to polar opposite and approaching her in that entrepreneurial spirit, right? Like there is a risk to, I don't know if she or he thinks like me, right? So for that was another reason why I wanted you guys on, because there's so many people that may be thinking about partnership with someone else. It's a big leap to take a leap, right, to do your own business, but then to say I'm also going to do it with somebody else, because it's a partnership, right? When I say marriage and I laugh about it, like
100%. Yep,
it's
it
a
really is.
marriage, So
We had I think a lot, both after we started this and people saw, wow, this is successful. And if we heard, if we got paid $1 every time someone said, oh, I should have thought of that. I wish I would have thought. We hear that a lot, but it wouldn't have worked, because a lot of times, and Tara and I each had people coming to us saying, oh, I could have done that with you. No, you couldn't, because the people that were going to her were like her, and the people coming to me were like me.
Mhm.
And I needed Tara. I didn't need anybody else. I needed
Right.
Tara.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, we are completely different brains, just work very differently,
Mhm.
and it works together. And there's a lot, you can hire out what you don't have. You absolutely can. And we have hired out some of the work.
Yep.
But in the end, you really having two different styles and different modes of thinking is really invaluable.
And I think too
Mhm.
that is to hone in more on the differences and what that looks like in a business relationship. There is a lot of grace you have to afford the other person. I mean, Tara really has the patience of a saint with me. And she is spreadsheet city. And I was writing all the businesses I wanted to approach on napkins, literally, and would go in my notes to a restaurant or whatever with my napkins. I knew where everything was on napkins. Like, and
Wasn't that the great story,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It started on a napkin,
Yes,
right?
it
In the
was.
restaurant. Yeah, it literally was.
It was.
It's
Yep.
true. Right.
And now what I have found is, like, if we're at an event or something, Tara will lean in and be like, oh, would you look at that font on that? They really dropped the ball with that. Now, this is a woman who, she wouldn't know a font from a
Right.
fountain.
Right.
And I'm saying to her, I really understand the value of your spreadsheets now, and I'm going to update the spreadsheet for us. And it really,
Right.
it works. It works. We've
Yeah.
learned a lot.
Yes, we have learned a lot from each other, and I understand more about marketing. I have never taken a marketing class in my life. I've never taken business classes, but I've learned so much from her about marketing and design and what
Mhm.
works, what doesn't work. And she will still educate me on the daily about what is going on with the files of on her
Oh,
computer
yeah.
and saving, not saving. I still don't totally understand it, but I have an appreciation for what she's
And neither
working.
do
Yeah.
I. But that's
Yeah.
and neither do I.
That's where we try to outsource some of that we need.
Yeah.
Right. You said, Kristen, grace, but I do think there's a piece of this. You also have to be vulnerable, because you guys are so different. You have to be vulnerable. Like that opinion that may not come at me, but that opinion will also help me learn. Like you said, I think it just is a piece of it not just Grace, right? You both are very vulnerable. So you get feedback, you accept feedback. I think that's got to be a huge key too, where you're not like, it's just my way or the highway. I mean, maybe
Was that way. It started that
have
way.
that issue.
And, yeah, I had been doing this already. I had been,
Yeah.
and so for me, I'm like, oh, of course I'm gonna know. No, I didn't necessarily know better. It took years, I think, for me to back off and let Tara grow and grow and grow. And I've got news for you. She kept growing and has surpassed me. And I look to her now for all things. She runs the business. I give the product. I create the product, and she runs the back end. She's talking to make everything happen behind the scenes. Like, oh, we're almost out of tins. Well, she's already got them ordered. They're shipping, and oh, okay.
But Kristen really is the product. I mean, all of the design, all of the art, everything you see, an ad, a thing that we print out to have on a table at an event, everything is designed by Kristen. And being able to trust that and know that it is going to be quality and something that is eye-catching and everybody will comment on it, that it's brilliant, gorgeous. There's never concern there.
I like that I'm a writer and she can say that, because design was not my thing. But what the best compliment I ever got from Tara, or one of them, was when she said, I'm really spoiled now seeing what you do. That was, to me, was the greatest thing she could have said, because I know she appreciates, gets it. And we really do bow down. Anything coming to finance, I don't even bother. Like, she runs the money. We know what our strength. I think this is the key and bottom line. Know your strengths, capitalize on your strengths, be solid in what you bring to the table, and let anyone else, your subcontractors, whomever, your partner, do what they're best at, because that is how you're going to be the most successful.
And don't be afraid to come to blows. Well, not real blows like fisticuffs, but don't be afraid to argue it out. We used to have once a year, we would have a knockdown, drag out, yelling at each other. And I think, that was probably the first 8 years, I think, once a year.
Yeah. We don't even bother now.
Now we got it all sort of streamlined and worked out, but it's okay to argue your point. And it doesn't mean that your relationship.
She's still right. She is still always right.
It doesn't mean that the relationship is in jeopardy, but it's good to express where your opinion is, where you're coming from. So.
Well, I think that's a really important point. I was just thinking, and going to say to you guys, like, it couldn't be all utopia, right? There's got to be moments where you're like either pulling your hair out or want to pull her hair out at some point. So I love that you brought that up, because I do think conflict is healthy, right? We don't get better if we're just like, oh yeah, I agree with everything you have and perfect. I don't think that happens. But it sounds like you guys have had enough time, just like in any marriage, right? Where you kind of know after a period of time.
Right. I mean, we disagree or have opinions on different, artwork or design, and she's asking for my opinion, and I might say something, but she really disagrees, and that's okay.
I still do what she says. Because in the end, it's going to be correct.
And I want to know where the stand-up comedy routine goes on live, right? Like,
I am often, even with you, Julie, before we came and we started recording, like, I had to stand down on a bunch of different things that almost flew out of my mouth, but I kept I put a filter in, which is rare.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's true. Now, because you guys have been in business for so long, right? You talked at the beginning about the recession, but then I know this pandemic, right? Here you are doing these beautiful tins, and the restaurant industry shuts down. And talk to me about that and how that affected you guys personally, and then the business, because the bottom just dropped. How did that work out, or how did you guys work through that?
We had just finished selling through our heavy selling season of our 2020 CityTins, right? So the bulk of our tins are sold from about October to December, January. They're such a giftable item. People like to use them for holiday gifts. So back in, October 2019 through that end of that year. And then come March, we had, is when everything went into shutdown mode, and we had no idea what to expect, right? Just like everyone else, everything was changing. No restaurants were open. The product couldn't be used. We are very lucky that most of the restaurants agreed to honor the coasters well into 2021, almost half the year of 2021. So even though they were unusable for the bulk of 2020, people could still get some value out of them. But we had to do nothing for the bulk of 2020 because we didn't know what was going to happen. Were restaurants closing? How long were we going to be closed for? I mean, we have a 6-month run up to an actual production of a tin and launching in the market, 6 months or longer even. And we just didn't know. So we had kind of a 9-month break, which was, from a personal standpoint, was a little lovely. Financially, almost decimated us.
Right.
And I think that's the case for many businesses across the globe. But
then we had to go back when we re-upped and so now restaurants are open. And interestingly enough, they were open here, but they weren't necessarily open in the Twin Cities, which that's also another market. Okay.
Mhm.
And so they had a lot going on there. And as we're trying to ramp up, we knew, look, we're in the business of supporting local restaurants specifically. We waived their fees. They're not going to be able to, we didn't want them on the hook to pay for a promotion that, we waived all the fees, and we realized for the product that we produce, for what we provide and the value and how well it works, we cannot run a business without charging for what we do. And and so that was the other thing, having that piece, knowing that we pro bono basically did everything. It was a challenge. And on the one hand, it was lovely not just to be able to take a break, because things can get monotonous in any job.
Right. Sure.
But on the other hand, we were so excited to get back to doing what we do. And in the beginning, when you're starting out, even one tin for us was a big undertaking, and there's a huge learning curve, and it's all new. All the different components, because we have the restaurants and then we have the customer we're selling to, and there's and the retail outlets, there's a lot of different constituencies. And so it really was a full-time job. And at first we thought this was just going to be a part-time gig. We're doing this and it's going to be great, and we have no, it's way more than a full-time job now. But the beauty of the workflow is we're at 9 tins or 7 tins at any given year. And it's almost as easy as it was, or as difficult as it was the first year, in that we're doing 9 times the amount of work with 10 times the amount of constituencies, but we've got it on lockdown because you find your flow. And when that's disrupted, whether it's by COVID or anything, it's tough. It's really tough. So we did have the meetings where, okay, how could we, quote unquote, pivot? And what would that look like for us? And we do have ideas, and that is a neat source of inspiration for, okay, how could we expand, and how were we going to scale maybe across instead of, vertically. So, but yeah, no joke, it was not easy. It was not fun.
One of the changes that did come out because of COVID, that we changed in our product, was we added a takeout option. So typically, restaurants make the most money on people dining in the restaurant. And because of COVID and takeout has exploded so much, and some people are just not comfortable dining in restaurants, we added a takeout option. So where usually it's $10 off for dine-in, we've added a $5 off for takeout. To still encourage you to patronize those restaurants. They certainly don't have as much margin on takeout, but it is a point that we added to our product because of COVID.
That's cool.
I think another interesting part of the process is, okay, we have relationships now, and we've developed rapport with some people more than others, but all of our restaurants that have worked with us and know how we work, we were able during that time, specifically Eric Wagner, who owns Lowlands, and Gordon Goggin, who owns the Stilt House, and incidentally, they used to work together closely. We were able to go and have conversations with them. Okay, what do you need? What's going to work? How can we help you better? What can make this product better? And those two individuals were very free to share and be vulnerable. Here's where we're at. Here's what we need to do, and here are our struggles. And it mirrored a lot because it's all the same industry. So, right. It was beautiful to be able to go to the people that we work with and say, okay, how can you help us, and how can we help you to make this work?
That's cool. That's cool. I love that you even got feedback, right? Because you're getting feedback from the customer to influence your next move, right? Because some
Absolutely.
people tried to pivot to things that potentially they weren't even listening to
Right.
where the demand was or what was really next for them. Well, we've talked a lot about the business, but you both are working moms, right? Like running a business. And I mean, even during COVID, I gave props to any, full-time working mom and full-time running a business, because you have kind of two big, very meaningful, important jobs. So tell me, each of you, how you balance that, where you get your inspiration to keep going. 'Cause I think there's a lot of us, a lot of women out there that I talk to all the time that say, I could never do what these ladies are doing. So share your stories on that, if you could.
I'm a single mother of 4, and I can honestly say what I've learned is when people say, "Oh, I don't know how you do it." I don't do it. It is hard, but when you're doing something, and this I think is across the board for any discipline, when you're doing something, do it, focus on it. If I'm with the kids, my phone's away. I don't, of course, Tara and I are working all the time when we're at home, and so that's kind of hard, but we do have the luxury of, okay, if we have to throw a load of laundry in while we're on a conference call, we can. And you make it work, but I find that when I'm working, I need to focus on work. And that means, okay, you put a time out to everything else. And when I'm with the kids, I want to be with my kids and I want to play and do whatever, go, whatever that looks like. But really put your focus where it should be with regard to what you're doing. Because women, I think women in general, are much better than our male counterparts at multitasking. And we do tend to take on, juggle, do everything because we are capable of doing that. It doesn't necessarily mean we should. So you have to know, as Christina Wegner said on your podcast before, you have to be okay to say no.
Right.
So when people ask me for favors or ask me in the beginning, because I had a marketing company, everyone would come and ask for this, and I would do it no problem. And Tara's like, "Kristen, we're doing this. I need you to say no sometimes." And I had to learn that. I had to absolutely learn how to say no. I cannot help with this now or whatever. Do I do it secretly on the side sometimes? Yeah, I'll try. Yeah, okay. Because
Yeah, she'll be like, "Oh, I was working on this." From like,
where'd that come from? I didn't know about that.
That's interesting.
It's also too because one of the things that I believe in very firmly is if you can, you should. And I know that doesn't apply across the board for everything, but I do have the ability, I can help people, and if there's someone in need, I am gonna help them if I can. And Tara can say whatever she wants, she does the same damn thing.
Okay, so I have a lot to add.
We'll let her tell her.
Right. I absolutely 100% agree with that. If you can, you should. For example, I've got 2 children, the daughter who just completed her freshman year in college. I have a son who just is going to be a junior in high school, which I don't know how we got here. I really don't. And let me back up even further. So when we first met, we both had 2 children and about the same ages. And CityTins became my 3rd child. And then Kristen also had 2 more children. So she was raising babies, infants. I mean, we were even just talking last night about how she was being rolled into delivery with her 3rd and editing some stuff on the computer to get everything to
on the gurney.
I love that story.
On the gurney. Yeah.
I think that was probably a poor move on my part, suggesting that she should do any work while she's in labor.
Did it. We had to get it done.
I don't, so I'm grateful for that commitment, right, to our business.
Right.
But so Kristen had, she was raising babies where I was ready, like, okay, let's keep growing this. We've got a Milwaukee tin. And if that, on year 3, I think we had a Madison tin. So we were at 2 or 3 tins. And I was done having small children. She still had small children. She was not ready to keep growing this. And I think we really had to work to make sure we were in sync on how we felt about our business, because it just, we were just in different spots. We still are. But as her children have gotten older, her young ones have gotten older, it's been a little easier to continue to grow our business. As far as if you can, you should, I thoroughly agree with that. And I do think it stretches us a little bit, stretches me a little thinly sometimes. It has been such a gift to be able to coach my kids' sports teams, basketball, volleyball, and be part of that, because I'll never have that again. But it also, it's a lot, right? But it is such an opportunity, and running a business out of your home, and finding dedicated space and time for that. So like once my kids went off to school, I had all day long to work, at home. Kristen still had babies, so it was finding that balance between all of that. I don't know that I have any advice that I did it well or anything like that. You just have to find your own flow, I guess, and don't be afraid to say no to things, because eventually that's, I think, how you find what works for you.
Julie, what's also interesting, my father always taught me, and he taught me, like, he was a mentor for me big time in terms of business and starting my own business, and then eventually moving on with Tara. And he would always say, surround yourself with smart people, surround yourself with people who know more than you, surround yourself so you're constantly learning and growing. And when we met Julie, and Tara and I have this business on lockdown, everything's great. And then we meet Julie and we're thinking, what can Not Magic do? Well, we do this. We've been reticent, and now after meeting you and knowing your competencies and how you are as a human being, and we want to work with her to grow the business in all the areas that we don't know, because that became during COVID. It was our tagline: you don't know what you don't know. And
yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for the compliment. But I knew this time was going to go super fast, right? But I think what I want our listeners really to hear is that, I have to tell you, ladies, so I get this all the time when people are like, thanks for continuing to do the podcast, right? Because this is a passion project. I'm not trying to advertise Not Magic. It really started out as this opportunity to have people like yourselves, like, lift the voices of people we don't hear all the time. Now, you guys are kind of celebrities because you've been on, the Morning Blend and all that, but okay. But I mean, but there's so many women that I've met over time that have been like, I need some other inspiration, Julie. And that's where I was too. And so that's why I love this story of how you guys are, doing it. I mean, Tara, you just said, like, I don't know if I did it well. I think that's what we're all struggling with. Am I doing it well enough? Like, yeah, you are, right? I think that's the big gift that I keep saying. Like, you can do it. You are doing it. Like, it's just, it's amazing what women can do. But I just really thank you guys for all of the inspiration that you've provided today in different ways, right? I can't even, we'll recap it at the end, but I appreciate that. But before we go, I want you guys to make sure everybody knows how they could purchase a CityTin, where they can find you, and maybe walk us through all the different markets so everybody's familiar. And we at Not Magic do give them out as gifts. So most of my customers last year got them, and our podcast get them. So we love them. We love them too. So we're an endorser. Support.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. So first of all, you can buy CityTins online, citytins.com. Every tin is $30, $200+ value. So citytins.com. They're also in a lot of retail locations. Think like Metcalfe's, The Outpost, Broadway Paper. We have a list of all the retail locations. We have over 100 throughout the country, throughout the different markets that we're in. It's on our website. We also do fundraisers. So there might be a nonprofit near you that is looking to raise money. And you can do that online, or, just by selling them door to door, if you will, a la Girl Scout cookies. So citytins.com. Thank you.
I don't do fundraisers for my child anymore because she's 23, but this would have been way cooler than wrapping paper, right? Like,
that's what we thought.
Only so much wrapping paper that we all need, right? Like, so, well, ladies, it's been a joy and a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today and just inspiring so many of us. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we have. Are there inspirational women leaders in your life? Recommend them for this podcast by emailing me at jcollins@knot-magic.com and telling me why they're the perfect person to be featured. And please leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts to help us share these amazing women with others.